On the both sides of the soccer playing field, it is Ivanishvili who sets the rules of the game.
If somebody asked me 5 years ago that we would end up in a situation like this, I would say that that's against all the odds.
Their main problem is, and the main headache is that this is a structure definitely standing on clay feet.
When you are a political leader, you are expected to deliver solutions to the entire problem of the country.
Number one, most important thing right now is, first, to keep the flame burning with whatever resources.
Hello and welcome to Talk Georgia, which is my English language podcast covering Georgian regional politics. Talk Georgia is brought to you by Droeba Media Group, a trusted source of high-quality news and analysis, and GSAP, a think tank providing comprehensive political analysis of Georgia and wider Black Sea region, also academic and practical training for postgraduate students and mid-career professionals. To dive into the present Georgian politics, we are joined by Dr. Anna Dolidze, the founder and the leader of For the People Party. Anna is a lawyer, studied law all the way from Tbilisi State University to one of Europe's oldest Leiden University and prestigious Cornell University. She also worked at University of Western Ontario as assistant professor and now teaches law at JIPA University, Tbilisi, Georgia. Anna's career spans many different fields, ranging from non-governmental organizations to executive government to the judiciary. She was the president of Georgia's Young Lawyers Association, one of the oldest and I would say the largest non-governmental organization in the Caucasus. She was the deputy defense minister, a legal advisor to the president of Georgia, parliamentary secretary of the president of Georgia, member of High Council of Justice. Maybe I'll stop here and very welcome to the show, and please feel free to add anything that you think our audience need to know about you to this short introduction before we get down to business, which is talking Georgia.
Oh, thank you very much. It's a great honor and pleasure to be here. I wouldn't add anything else. Thank you for the very warm welcome, and so I'm happy to hear your questions and delve into the discussion.
Okay, let's get started then. Why party politics? I mean, you had such a picturesque career, the different fields, the high positions. You started your own party, your own movement in 2020, and in 2021 you started your own party. And then kind of started party politics, which is I think the different type of politics compared to the executive politics. I've been in party politics myself quite long, and I know that running a party is quite different, or maybe more complicated than maybe to be deputy to defense minister or being a minister. How do you find it? I mean, what are the differences between the party politics and the executive politics that you've been in? And times have changed since 2020 or 2021. 2021, the Georgia was still kind of developing democracy or young democracy, where it made sense to start a new party because, well, there was a demand for a center-left social democratic party as is yours. Nowadays, we have absolutely different situation. Obviously, the parties are being banned now, and the party space is extremely limited. So how do you survive?
Thank you. I think that's a very serious question, and it allows me to talk about things that I've thought about. Certainly, so current situation I would put aside for a little bit because it is indeed extraordinary. We're not in a democracy. It's actually something between authoritarianism and dictatorship, so somewhere close. So let's put it aside for a little bit and go back to in a normal aspirational democracy, indeed, and you have voiced it very well, being even a senior executive in government, senior public official, I would say still much easier than running a political party. It is easier because you are still part of a well-established hierarchy. So when I returned back from Canada as a Deputy Minister of Defense, and after that continued within each branch of government, you are part of a particular hierarchy. There are certain principles, there are certain rules. Actually, I have worked with people who are leaders in Georgian public sphere, but have never worked in government, and I've often thought they will never last a week within government.
Okay.
You know this,
Yeah,
because you arrive in a situation where there's so many rules, so many procedures, there's hierarchy, there's a system. You have to, restrain yourself from saying things, and so. But also, it's less responsibility than running a party. Why I established a party and engaged in this quite tough and learning experience for me, because I was always obsessed. I was always focused on the question of judiciary. Always. This is why I became a lawyer when I was a kid, a student. This is why I ran as a candidate for Supreme Court. You might remember, before hired
I remember that.
by Margvelashvili's office, President Margvelashvili's office. And then when I found myself in the High Council, also, of course, I was concerned with what's going on in judiciary. I am convinced also now, of course, the state was hijacked through judiciary now. It's a crux of the problem. Repressions, previously or now, that take place through courts. Courts exercise power. And so I wanted to basically reform the courts. And I realized as I founded the party, that the only way to do that is to have your own political voice. Otherwise, I would probably always be invited as a professional in a system.
That's right.
With much less power and much less voice. So that was my original intention. Now, of course, the space is limited, and therefore I've thought, it's you might not change the situation only with party politics. You can be an educator, you can raise awareness. You might remember that great, the founding father of the Georgian Republic, Ilia Giorgi, he was a banker, he was a writer, he was a judge, and at the same time he was the founder of the Reading Society, Reading Promotion Society. So you can affect change with many forms, and this is not the end. That's what I want to say.
Interesting. And let's move on a little bit on the current affairs, basically. And we just said that, the parties are being banned, and the present development is not just parties, these three parties that are on the list now. There is an initiative from the Georgian Dream that effectively bans Georgian immigrants who are living not in Georgia but away from Georgia from exercising their voting rights. Okay, technically, of course, they can come to Georgia and vote, but to restrict their vote only to Georgia, that effectively bans them out or shuts them out. Okay, from the system. And as that happens, at the same time we see that there's over 100 political prisoners in Georgia. Almost all the political leaders, and you are lucky one that you are out, are in prisons. We have restrictive laws that effectively puts Georgia in the club of the authoritarian countries like the Russia and Belarus and Azerbaijan. Unthinkable. Simply, if somebody asked me 5 years ago that we would end up in a situation like this, I would say that that's against all the odds. But this is what we see now. Well, yesterday we had Mzia Maglobeli's case when the appeals court, was it appeals court that upheld the 2-year sentence for her? So Georgia is isolated as a country. Last European Union's enlargement report basically is a death certificate for Georgia's European integration. You name it. Wherever you look, you see these terrible things happening around us. So, but again, and when you said that running a party is absolutely different and more difficult thing than be in a high executive position, what makes it even harder, when you are a political leader, you are expected to deliver solutions to the entire problem of the country. It's not any field, only judiciary or only defense or only trade or whatever. So, and as a political leader, my question is to you, what is the solution to all this, what I said?
Yes, so let's start with actually a great TV program by Georgia's former chair of parliament, then prime minister, a person that you probably have known in person as well, Zorab. I looked at this video and it turns out to be from, I thought it was from 2000s, but it turns out to be from 1993. Unbelievable. It's a great video, very entertaining, and in there he says that the life of a Georgian politician is different from other politicians, and that a Georgian politician, and he says it jokingly, but we have to say, we have to take it what he says. He says you have to be able to run, sometimes to fight, sometimes to argue, to talk, to physically run. He says that is an extraordinary life that a Georgian politician has. And if we take the situation now, that's even more the case, right? That Georgian politicians, they don't have anything resembling normal working environments that you see in Western Europe or anywhere else, right? Our lives are currently, I don't leave a house without a pepper spray, for example. But I have committed myself to this choice, whatever the circumstances are. Yes. Is it hard now? Yes. Is it because the expectations are very high? Certainly. But the outcome is one thing. The most important tool with which politicians work with is tactics and strategy, right? As the situation changes, we have to change as far as we're able, because the final point is the regime can take you and put you in jail. Then your choice of strategies are limited, of course, by the environment. But right now, what we can do and what I am doing is, from the limited choice of tactics and strategies to affect change, and it's very limited, we can choose some which we still have in this environment. And when there is usually there is this dissatisfaction with politicians, especially recently, that they don't deliver. I usually explain this, that it is, on the both sides of the soccer playing field, it is Ivanishvili who sets the rules of the game. Nobody else has right now the agency to change the rules of the game. Not full agency. We do have some agency, and I'll expound it later. But mostly, the government has come to their own playing field, reshuffling, putting away people who have been sanctioned, removing diaspora from voting. But they're also affecting how the other team plays, and that is the opposition, right? By removing parties, by putting people to jail, by threatening us. So, for example, the signal that is clearly understood nowadays is if you talk about sanctioning the government, or if you talk about the fact that you advocated for sanctioning the government, you will go to jail, right? So, nevertheless, I have worked very hard to, for example, to not only to sanction people who I think have been in charge of human rights abuses in this country, but also to adopt this amendment which allows to remove visa-free for certain groups of people who are implicated in human rights abuses. That is still the tool that I have as a politician. But you mentioned, but the unfortunate thing, thing is that the 1993 citation quote from Zurab Zhvania is relevant 30 years later. This is the case. It's even harder for a woman, right? Somebody who I abstain from either physical fight or from all the things that the roughness of Georgian politics entails, right? But that's the unfortunate situation. I blame it on two things. What happened from 2024. One, Ivanishvili's need to stay in power, definitely, absolute necessity to stay in power. And second, the unfortunate circumstance of Ukraine war and Russian invasion in Ukraine. That allows him and his team to the kind of discretion and freedom that he would not be able to do otherwise, right? And we can go into this later.
Well, interesting. I agree with you that, for example, the Russia's unprovoked invasion of Ukraine basically, well, obviously I'm sure that Ivanishvili knew about that beforehand, maybe a week, maybe a month, and he also believed, similarly as Vladimir Putin, that it would take 3 days or 5 days or maybe 10 days to capture Kiev. And Ivanishvili surrendered Georgia exactly that time because he thought that the Russians would win in Ukraine and Georgia was part of Russia already. So then it would take a phone call from Lavrov or even like Zakharova just to capture Georgia. So Ivanishvili, I think, surrendered there, or maybe before, I don't know. And everything that we see that so much resembles of Russian politics is because of that, I believe. But again, coming back to, it's been already a year since the elections. And that was such a pivotal, I would say, point in Georgia's modern history, I would say. And I mean, I didn't really hear much from the politicians kind of reflecting and talking about the elections, maybe what went wrong, what went right, what mistakes were made, what can we learn from 2024 parliamentary elections. That basically shifted politics absolutely into different direction. So what is you were part of Strong Georgia Coalition, your party, and you competed in the elections together in 2024 elections. And when Lelo basically decided to participate in the local elections, I think that was when your party left the coalition. So again, well, maybe can you tell us a bit more why you decided so, and also maybe your reflections of the 2024 parliamentary elections and what could have been done better, for example, from this perspective, for the opposition to have a better chances of winning that, or maybe there was no chance of. I mean, because the opposition won it, but the opposition together failed to basically sustain the result.
Yes, that's true. And I attribute this primarily to opposition, not me, but and I'll talk about this, agreeing wholeheartedly with naivete or through corruption. Also, both, to electronic voting. This was biggest mistake. Electronic voting was adopted voluntarily by Georgian Dream, and of course, as if opposition were savvy, we should have asked the question: why is a government giving away power and control on its own without being asked? And is this the kind of government that would do so? At the time, I was suspicious and raised actually, luckily, thank God, there are videos where I've been raising questions of, this specific question. Is this legitimate? Will we have tools for control? The zeitgeist, and henceforth, I will always be suspicious of the Georgian bubble zeitgeist. Was, these are, and the government propaganda, of course, worked in it, was that this is a tool that it's not possible to be abused, and so on. And it has been implemented in many countries. Now, of course, we know that the specific companies being investigated in a number of jurisdictions. But outside of the technology was not a problem. The problem was that the ruling party had ability to work on this technology upside and from all sides for 2 years, And what they have done is tailored the whole system of rigging towards that technology, while we had not even seen the single machine. While only some experts here and there had examined the machine. Some NGOs have asked to audit the machine, and they were not given the possibility to do so. So that was the crux of the problem and crux of the rigging. Because if you take every other instrument of rigging, not only me, people who are in kind of political field, we have a lot of experience in understanding the system, how it works. But with this new element and with changing the rules, without which they do all the time, and this is their tactic, I'll explain, without us having the experience in those new rules. So new system, new rules, and we're naive. This allowed them to work all summer of 2024, create a system, implement a system that would rig the elections with the machine. And at the end, we sat there asking for those receipts. Of course, nobody would give us the receipts. Nobody would give us the machines. So this is the key problem. I think the key problem is, of course, propaganda, probably also working with some technological experts, is because we know this from cases from abroad now, that and changing the rules with new technology with which everybody else had no idea and naively trusted. The rest is, the rest we're chasing a black cat in a dark room, right? The machines have been locked up. No matter how much we demanded to the records to be released, they're supposedly somewhere, but now we don't even know what the logs are, right? So that was a major mistake to attribute, and a lot can be attributed to treachery, to naivete, maybe to corruption, a combination of things, but that's my explanation of what happened in 2024. In terms of numbers, we won. In terms of pro-democratic, pro-European movement won. That's what I wanted to say. In terms of pressure, none of it was extraordinary. It was that all the methods were new. And most importantly, I wouldn't blame opposition for not raising panic that elections would be rigged, right? Because some people say, why you were not raising panic elections would be rigged? Well, that would just dampen the mood, dampen the turnout, right? And on the other hand, what we expected, we didn't expect rigging to the degree that it was rigged, because the system of rigging was completely new. So also looking to Eastern Europe, I think is very important to say, and looking to areas of Russia's influence, to Romania and other countries where some allegations have been made. What is important is to look at this tactic of not rigging elections in a traditional, very blatant way, stealing ballot boxes, right? This is very 20th century. 21st century is this kind of hybrid, quiet, perhaps also with technological involvement rigging.
Interesting. But let's move on. How to proceed? Because, this is what happened. We have to face it. Ivanishvili retained power. He captured all the institutions now. There is not a single state institution in Georgia that is not controlled by the government. Ivanishvili I would say suffocated civil society organizations, or at least weakened to the point that, it is very difficult to continue existing. Independent media is in a worse situation compared to what it was a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago. And again, we expect some of the national TVs maybe suffocated within few months. What Ivanishvili also did, and I agree with you when you said that, now he is reinventing the rules of politics, and he reinvented the rule of politics. He said, I am the government, I decide who runs the country, but also I am the opposition. I decide who's opposing me or who is opposing my government. But what I'm saying is that, again, in that situation, we have like two centers of politics now in Georgia. We have like Ivanishvili's politics, which is, the parliament and, the ministries and state institutions and Central Election Commission and so on, and I would say government and the loyal opposition. And another center is Rustaveli Avenue, kind of, where you have people protesting what is happening, and maybe some kind of underground situation attached to Rustaveli Avenue, because the parties maybe today are still on the ground, but I'm sure they will go underground when there is no room on the ground. So where are you in these two centers? Or maybe in between, or I don't know. Tell us.
Yes. So, indeed. So, also it's important to note that they started capturing the courts primarily from early on, 2000. I wouldn't say 2013 was the kind of thaw when Ivanishvili met the head of the clan, Morusice, you might remember, kind of forgiving him for the past. And that was also kind of a sovereignist move. This is not a bad guy, I forgive him. But, and later on through the High Council, primarily through the High Council, capturing judiciary, and then through judiciary, then the Constitutional Court, and so on, and Election Commission, and so on. But now, their main problem is, and the main headache is that this is a structure definitely standing on clay feet. Definitely. It is a structure. It's standing on clay feet. And it's standing on clay feet because the public opinion, and I am 100% positive on this, not because of just opinion polls, which are true, which reflect what I'm saying, but also because moving around in the city, in the country, in person and talking to people, I have yet to find a person pleased with this government. So I wouldn't say only Rustaveli. I would say there is a wide degree of dissatisfaction for many things, for the quality of life. It might not be translated into protests because people are afraid, they don't have the means, they're not used to. But there is a wide level of dissatisfaction, and GD knows this very well. Basically, what the dilemma they have is they've just lost the game of 10-2. They know it, right? It's 10-2. The public support of GD is around 20-25%, especially after what has happened here with repressions and in December. So with the aspiration to stay in power, they're trying to move the field, and these are the measures, right? Remove these opposition people, remove these parties, cut off diaspora, to somehow level the playing field. 10-2 is a big score. What is this 10-2? Is primarily not because people are particularly happy or supportive of a particular opposition. No, there is a wide level of dissatisfaction with the quality of life here, starting from prices, salaries, medical fees, and everything that usually, unfortunately, politicians don't talk about. This is a problem of political discourse out there with major TVs, right? All they're talking about is procedural questions of kind of political strategy, while in fact, what people have grievances about is really, really high fees for example, medical examination that every family in Georgia is concerned with. So that is the situation. Why they have removed, which I think is an absolutely stupid move. They have removed diaspora from voting. It's a stupid move for them as well. So we have counted. Last year, 2024, although we have millions of people abroad, only 34,000 people managed to vote. Because there were lines, of course, there were huge queues, huge mobilization because of various meddling, queues, not opening voting precincts. They have. I have advocated for example, like in Moldova, why this is now turning into a diaspora nation. Georgia wasn't a diaspora nation, like Armenia. You know, we never had this old diaspora. Our diaspora is really young, but it is turning into a diaspora nation with people going to work to Europe and elsewhere. So we need more places to vote and more easier ways to vote. So instead of this, they're cutting 40,000 people, approximately, maybe more, including their own voters, from voting. And diaspora has been paying $4 billion a year with remittances to this country. $4 billion a year. It has been sustaining. It has been sustaining Georgian economy, right? That is the biggest investment, foreign direct investment right now. And I think
10% of Georgia's GDP.
Yes. So I think this idea was brewed in Rukhadze's mind. I'm sure about this. I'm sure about this, that he went away into his retreat and came up with this idea. It's terrible for them as well, because this means first, they're very desperate. They're desperate, and they're looking at these numbers, trying to remove 40,000 here, 1,000 here, like this. You know, above all, that's a very important point. Ivanishvili is a financier. That's very important. He is a guy of numbers, not of emotions, not of appealing to humanity or none of that. He's a guy of an Excel spreadsheet. And I'm sure that's what he's doing now, looking at this and trying to level the balance sheet of how to reduce the number of people who are dissatisfied and increase the number of people that are going to vote for him or not vote at all. So what are the signs of optimism in this situation? So I am particular in this camp because I have a long-term view, and I firmly believe that it's not possible to subjugate this country. This is kind of not a pragmatic belief. This is more religious and patriotic belief. Yeah. So I believe that if you look at the first prime minister of Russia was a person born and raised in Georgia. That's very important. We have to tell the Russians, right? The first prime minister of Russia, Sergei Vita, it was a person born and up to 16 years old until he went to university. He was raised in Tbilisi, in Tetritskharo, right? He has a great 3-volume memoir. First volume, he discusses a lot about Georgian culture. And he is astonished by the bravery, and this is a person who is Russian. He was heading a Russian state, appointed by the Tsar before the revolution. He's astonished by the bravery of Georgian people. He says we lack tactics, we lack wit, but our ability and dedication to fight cannot be underestimated, basically. And he has fantastic examples in the stories of a rebellion in Tbilisi, how Tbilisi during this rebellion on small minor grocery issue, imagine, did not care about the Russian battalion stationed here. They did not pay, they did not care, did not account for anything for these Russian soldiers. It's a Russian person saying himself. What do I mean? So overall, when we are retreating, when we are on the offensive, either way, my long-term view this year, next year, when the circumstances in the puzzle are right, and we can go to the puzzle later, the democratic movement, pro-European movement, because it's a pro-welfare movement, in Georgia wins, right? Now, from now to that moment, we are engaged in maneuvers. It could be we are on the defensive. It could be we are on the offensive. So, for example, one fact we forget is that it's because of the movement that Ivanishvili had to change his most loyal team. Without that, Gomelauri, Lilwashvili, all these people would still be running the country. It's because of the movement. Actually, that's a big sacrifice. Imagine if you're a sovereign, you have to fire your best generals just because they become a problem, right? So I think that's where we are right now. We could be on the defensive. We could be on the offensive. either way, when the proper circumstances align, pro-democratic movement wins.
The proper circumstances. Okay, let's zoom out a little bit and see what is happening in the world. And when these proper circumstances will come geopolitically. Because now what we see, the United States is really busy with its own going-ons. It has different type of president. The Megobari Act is stalled, and maybe it will come into life, but it will take time. European Union basically sees and very closely watching what is happening in Georgia, but the reaction is late because of many reasons and obvious reasons, that there is no consensus on sanctioning Ivanishvili and his cronies, and also, I would say, yes, European Union is supporting Georgian democratic forces, but I think it is a drop in the ocean because a lot more support is needed. What else we see? We see the de facto Georgian government very clearly leaning towards China. Russia largely depends on situation in Ukraine. So what happens with the war itself, maybe the midterm elections in the US, maybe what happens in Hungary, for example, in January elections. There's lots of things around us, in Caucasus, etc. But again, what does long-term mean, and when the right circumstances will come, in your opinion?
Yes, you have laid out the field. You're an expert of this yourself. The field of elements that decide. Of course, Georgia has always been highly engaged as a small nation, highly engaged, highly dependent. The number one factor, I think, for global interest is Middle Corridor. And the fact that we have, especially after Ukraine war, Georgia has become so important on the because of the Middle Corridor, because of the prospect it offers for engagement with Central Asia, with China, and with Europe. That I don't think anybody, even if this train is slow with EU and US, I don't think anybody is giving up on Georgia as a Western ally. And we have to remember that when the Georgian Republic or Transcaucasian Republic was born, it was a moment. It was kind of the opposite moment of what is happening now, right? It was a moment where all these global powers were in a flux. Russia was falling apart. Western powers were in a flux themselves. There was a time of great turmoil, and the Transcaucasian Republic emerged, and then the Georgian Republic announced independence when there was this turmoil. I think what is happening now is exactly the opposite. There is reshuffling. There are issues with global order at large. So great powers are busy with their own issues. We see what's happening in the United States. There's a big tension with internal politics. Second highest important question internationally is finishing an Ukraine war, the peace deal. So there's very little room of attention for Georgia right now. And I think this is why Georgian Dream is using this moment actually to take all the cogs from the chess table as much as they can, and then to slowly, like Lukashenko has done, for example, right? Get a little concession, release a couple of political prisoners, get another concession, release more political prisoners, to kind of trade this field ultimately back with the West. So that's why the moment he's using. From our situation, number one, most important thing right now is first to keep the flame burning with whatever resources, right? So there is a talk, which I don't like right now. There is a talk that why are so many opposition leaders going to Europe? There should be one center that does that lobbies our foreign allies. I think it's wrong. I think leaving one center suscepts it to great influence from it's one thing to say we have to have a concerted messaging. That's true, right? So we actually have concerted messaging anyways, right? What all we talk about is we need more sanctions primarily right now. And I agree with you. For example, some things have been put on the books. I have had meetings with the ministers in Great Britain as well. So that is, UK's attention to Georgia is paramount and is very important. The sanctions list towards Russia is huge in the EU, but measures towards Georgia are minuscule compared to them. So we need more. So sustain that communication, because in general, not right now, in general, we have to learn how to get attention as a small nation. Previous government was great at that. As a critic, even I was a critic, but on human rights.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yes, but on human rights, but to pay attention in terms of getting attention to Georgia and kind of knocking on the doors, that we have to continue doing that. Second, there are more than 3 million people left, right, in Georgia right now. We have to prepare many more people for leadership than we have right now, because the government's tactic will be, okay, we take this person, Giorgi Rukhadze, he's eloquent, out.
Look up.
Or forbid taking part in politics. We have to have a supply of soldiers willing up to take this position. And for that, we have to do more. I'm trying my best, right, with education, awareness, working with young people. Even temporarily, we have to absolutely foster people to say, okay, you see, the front row of soldiers have fallen. We need to have another round. And for that, everybody who's more senior in politics has to play a bigger role, like sharing knowledge, training, to that way. Right now, okay, how many they ban parties? Okay, they ban people from participating in politics. We should not forget, even all authoritarianisms bear costs. They do not want to bear extra costs, for sure. This is from science, right? Even authoritarianisms, they watch the cost for every action. So every step they take has costs. So we have to utilize and exploit the system and this kind of thinking.
I'm enjoying this conversation enormously, but the time is against us. But again, anything that you would like to add to the podcast before we say goodbye to our viewers?
Well, yes, thank you for your attention. I'm really happy that the space exists. And I'm really grateful for the attention that Georgia gets, and I hope our friends pick up the clips from this and YouTube, and go back sharing them among decision-making circles in Washington, in Paris, in London, in every other very important capital, in Asia, in Beijing, because this is a question of that concerns not the Georgian government, but the future of the Georgian state and Georgian people.
Dr. Dolidze, thank you for being on the show. Thank you for watching us, listening to us. Please subscribe to our channel, YouTube channel. Don't forget Spotify if you prefer listening, and I'll see you next week.